Well, last spring, so it had been the spring of '08, Mike Crawford gave me a copy of Unbinding the Gospel and Unbinding Your Heart and Unbinding Your Church, and so we were very unbound as we took a look at all these different books. And he explained to me the process a little bit, but not very much. He just kind of threw the books at me and said, I want you to take a look at this. I think this is something that First Church might be interested in doing. To be honest with you, I had just become the full-time senior pastor here. I was still living in Champaign, which is 90 miles away. I was commuting back and forth. I felt like that was the last thing on earth I needed to have dropped in my lap, and I didn't do much of anything with it for a couple of months. And then I started to look through it. I handed out some copies to some other people on our staff, and we talked about it in staff for a while and realized that maybe this could be something that could help the entire church move forward in the area of evangelism. We did a survey, a natural church development survey, and discovered that the quality characteristic that was the lowest at First United Methodist Church, and you always have one whenever you do one of these things, but the lowest for us was need-oriented evangelism. And when we put those two things together, we realized, you know what? Maybe God is trying to say something to us here. So we decided that we would give it a shot, and we signed up for the program, which I really didn't have any idea would mean for us. But it turned out that we got connected with Martha Grace Reese, which she also goes by Gay, so I'll probably call her that a few times as we go along here. And Gay and I started to talk, and she put me together with a couple of other pastors of similar-sized churches, different denominations. They're both Presbyterians. That are, one is in Indianapolis and one is in Dallas. And so we've been having a little coaching group together, Gay and the three of us, in trying to get all three of our churches on board with this so that we could really lift the value of evangelism in each of our churches. And in my estimation, really kind of help First United Methodist Church get back up on the ball of evangelism. I think that for a variety of reasons, we just slipped off. And so we were no longer able to engage people that were non-Christians who were outside the faith looking in into a real relationship with Christ that would then help them to grow further in their relationship with God. When we started to do the Unbinding series, I thought it was going to be all about evangelism. I really did. It's not. It's about unfreezing icy hearts. The real focus of this study is to help people try God again for the first time. It's helping people to have their hearts thaw as they get involved in these spiritual exercises that are included in the book, and also as they participate in small group discussions, so that they start to have a relationship with God and other people that they never dreamed possible. And when that happens, the sweet result is that people get led to Jesus and His church. So how cool is that? And I'll give you an example. In our staff, we decided to do the Unbinding the Gospel study together as a staff. And as a part of the program, we were supposed to pair up, and we randomly paired up with various people on staff. And I got paired up with a guy, and part of our assignment that day was to get together just in pairs and share prayer requests, personal prayer requests with each other, and then pray for each other. So we did that, and we started praying. I prayed first, and then he prayed, and he prayed this beautiful, simple, touching prayer for me. And afterwards, I just thanked him for that. And he looked at me and he said, that's the first time I've ever prayed out loud in my life. My jaw dropped. I said, how could that be? And he said, well, I really, when I first heard this assignment, wanted to rush out the door. But when I realized I'd be paired with you, I didn't think I could do that. And he said, for years, my wife has wanted me to pray with her, and I have steadfastly refused because I was afraid. I was afraid I'd say something wrong. And now, maybe I can do that. And I thought to myself, right here in front of my eyes, a heart is thawing. That's what unbinding the gospel can do. When we talked to Gay about this, she recommended to us kind of the same thing that she does with pretty much all the churches, and that's to go through an Unbinding the Gospel study with as many of the leaders of the congregation as you possibly can muster to begin with. And so, and her benchmark is about 20% of the congregation. So we thought, you know, if we have a really great showing on this, we might get 100, 150 people who would be willing to go through this. And we kept kind of beating the drum and encouraging people. It turns out we had 250 people who went through it this last fall. And that was a sizable enough group that it started to permeate through the rest of the congregation. Now, this weekend, I'm going to do a little vision casting for what we're going to do this Lent. And our hope is to have at least 1,200 people go through this Unbinding Your Heart study, the follow-up study, with the congregation for the 6 weeks during Lent. Here's what I really like about Unbinding the Gospel and the whole Unbinding series, is it really is a pre-evangelism series. It's to help people start to, as I talked about before, get back up on the ball of evangelism. And you do that by getting kind of back up on the ball in your relationship with God. We have so many people that have a borrowed faith, borrowed from their parents, borrowed from their friends, borrowed from their pastor. It's not theirs. And this series is really designed to help them make their faith their own, to have a real personal relationship with God. One where there's daily communication, where they're not just saying words to God, but they're hearing the voice of God in their own life. And when that happens, it changes you. It changes you from the inside out. And it makes you much more likely to share that kind of spiritual change with other people in a very natural and kind of unaffected way. I mean, it's not canned. It's just, it's who you are from the inside coming out. That is something that we used to do almost like sleepwalking in our previous lives as a denomination in the United Methodist Church and other denominations. But for whatever reason, we've kind of forgotten how to do that. So that's what Unbinding the Gospel and the series can do for us. Well, it is a speed of the leader, speed of the team situation. And so if your spiritual leaders are a 6 out of 10, then you can't really hope that the congregation is ever going to get much higher than a 5. If you want the congregation to grow in their spiritual experience and spiritual leadership, your leaders have to go up a couple of notches. And then that leaves room for other people to come up.